you wanted the best, you've got the best podcast. The hottest podcast in the world. The Chris Voss Show, the preeminent podcast with guests so smart you may experience serious brain bleed. The CEOs, authors, thought leaders, visionaries, and motivators. Get ready. Strap yourself in. Keep your hands, arms, and legs inside the vehicle at all times, because you're about to go on a monster education roller coaster with your brain. Now, here's your host, Chris Voss.
Hi, folks. It's Voss here from thechrisvossshow.com. When the shrill lady sings it, that makes it official. Welcome to the big show. As always, the Chris Voss Show is a family that loves you, but doesn't judge you, at least not as harshly as the rest of the world, because, you know, we're nice. We really mean it when we say we love you as an audience. Unless you're evil, then we think about it twice. But work on that, folks. But that's why you listen to the Chris Voss Show, so you can always make sure you're up to par on how to be the best person you can be. And we have the wonderful authors, minds, coaches, and stuff who come on the show to share with you their stories, their journeys of life, and share with you on how to be a better human being. So if you're just wanting to be more evil, you can go on Twitter. Opinions expressed by guests on the podcast are solely their own and do not necessarily reflect the opinions of the host or the Chris Voss Show. Some guests of the show may be advertising on the podcast, but it is not an endorsement or review of any kind. Anyway, guys, thanks for joining. We've got an amazing young lady on the show. We're going to be talking about her hot new book that came out November 22nd, 2024. It is called Read, Reflect, Respond, the 3 R's of Growth and Change. The 3 R's, there's growth. We'll get into it in the book. Gloria Vanderhorst that joins us in the show. I'm just having some fun with her book title. She is billed as the best possible experience when you decide to hire a mental health professional. I've seen some of you out there. You need all the help you can get. So call her. The relationship she has is an integral part of your success. She will help you understand how 30 plus years of her experience have shaped her approach and her ability to support your growth. Her work has taught her that change is possible at any age. Wait, you can teach old dogs new tricks? Mm-hmm. She hasn't met my dog. It's a husky and it's stubborn, but we can try. In her early work with children, she learned that our brains are creative as well as vast storehouses of early experiences. From early experiences of bonding, relating to others, and reacting to circumstances, we all lay down reaction pathways that stay with us as we grow. In this way, the past is always important as part of the present. The key to change is appreciating that our brains enjoy neuroplasticity. I'd poke mine, and I don't have a joke for that. I'm just trying to do a plastic joke, and I just can't find one. Evidently, I don't have enough plastic joke residuals in my library there. Sorry, folks. It's a narrow comedy that I do. So anyway, she uses techniques based upon this principle and current research in brain function, and can be found in the 2 primary techniques used in her practice: emotional focused therapy and internal family systems. Welcome to the show, Gloria. How are you?
I am great. Thank you for having me. Looking forward to the conversation.
There you go. I'm looking forward to have you as well. Give us your .coms. Where on the interwebs do you want people to find you and follow you?
You could find my website. It's www.drvanderhorst.com. And you can also find me on Substack. I write every week, and you can sign up to receive them. I'd love to have a bigger audience.
Substack, boy, it's really getting popular over there.
It is.
Yeah, it's getting.
It is. Tons of people are writing on Substack.
Oh yeah, it's almost like people have something to say.
No, I have a lot to say.
Yeah, you and me and the podcast. So give us a 30,000 overview. What's inside your book? Read, reflect, respond.
This book is for anyone who can read and write and draw and scribble. The truth about our brains is that they house everything. They house every experience we've had from kind of the last trimester that you're inside mother's womb. You have memories packed in your brain from that time frame, and you have memories from the day that you were born moving forward. They're all there. They're all accessible. Absolutely every one of them, which is a miracle, actually. And the book is designed to help people access all of those memories, ones that are current, ones that are far in the past, ones that you just lost track of. And it has an essay on the left-hand page.
Okay.
So you're going to pick that out. You don't have to go through the book from page 1 to the end. You can jump around, pick anything that strikes your fancy for that day or that week. And then the facing page has 3 questions or comments, and then the rest of the page is blank. And it's intentionally blank because we store memories not just in terms of words, but in terms of motion and action. So if you want to draw, scribble, scratch, anything that you put on that page is going to access some very important memories that you hold in your brain. And so that's the design of the book. It's organized so that you could do 1 a week. You could go through it as fast as you want, as slow as you want. And it's also organized into some different categories related to family, related to work, related to relationships. So if you're a person who just wants to go discover what's hidden up there in my brain, what can I learn as I sit with myself and just read some simple paragraphs, this is ideal. And it's applicable for anybody that can read and write.
Oh, does it, so it covers everything. Does it focus a lot on your childhood, things that shaped you, trying to maybe focus on remembering specific things in our brain that we have from childhood that maybe we...
Yeah, the reason that the facing page is blank rather than lined is that very thing. We store things in childhood a lot of the times in terms of pictures or in terms of motion. So we have muscle memories. You can remember in your body a particular experience. If somebody grabbed you sometime and scared you, your body holds that memory. And that memory could be triggered if somebody else kind of grabs you in the same place. And so we keep information and we can access that information. I think that's the good news here, is that our history shapes who we are, how we interact with the world around us, and we put limits on ourselves without really recognizing that we're doing it. Some early history experience that you had, let's say that you were in elementary school and shamed in front of the class and, had to sit in the corner or be made fun of. I mean, I have heard stories that you would not believe where teachers will have the entire class shame somebody, say the same, repeat the same thing to them until they just collapse and fall into tears. So those memories tend to get boxed up, right? That's not something that I'm going to want to take home with me. That's not something I'm going to want to remember for very long. I'm going to box that one up and I'm going to put it in the back of my brain as far back as I can put it. But it will influence me from that day forward. I'll be more cautious in interacting with people. Maybe I will keep a distance from people. Or maybe I will be very brash, right? That I'll just come barreling at them because I expect them to be mean to me or be nasty to me or to reject me in some way. And when I can then, as a teenager, as an adult, recognize that I had that life experience, the whole thing gets unlocked. And it doesn't influence you anymore. You now have a choice. You don't have to be nasty to everybody. You don't have to be bossy. You don't have to be brash. You can now say to yourself, wow, that was a real serious injury. And I've suffered with that injury for an extended period of time. And I can now let it go. And I mean literally let it go. right? Toss it in the ocean, put it in a balloon, and let it float away, but it doesn't belong to you anymore. Somebody shamed you, and that's not a part of you. You need to let that go. You need to really release it.
I like that concept of yours, letting that balloon go.
Mm-hmm.
And the symbolism of it, that kind of put, because you tell people, hey, you should just let that go. And people are like, yeah, I don't know, whatever. They still haven't reconciled it, evidently. You bring to mind some of the things we've talked about over the years on the show in psychology. And evidently, according to some people, I don't want to create conspiracies, but evidently a lot of times in our childhood, the stimuli that we get, what happens to us, maybe even down into the womb, it's surmised, there are things that can happen to us that if they're too overwhelming for us to handle at that time, because we're children, we don't understand what's going on. Trauma, big T, little t, we don't understand what's going on. And so sometimes our memory will hide stuff from us and go, okay, you can't handle this right now. We're going to save this for later when you kind of mature, or maybe you get to a point where you can maybe square the round peg. And so is that true? How do you think about that?
That's absolutely true.
Mm-hmm.
We could go digging in your brain. Would you like to go digging in your brain?
No, we don't.
No. We don't have time for that.
We don't self-analyze, Chris, on this show because we don't have that kind of time. This would be like a week-long podcast, if not years. So.
No, it is true for all of us. All right. Every one of those pieces of information is housed. And it's interesting, all right, that somehow instinctively, some piece of us knows this is dangerous. Mm-hmm. We're going to box this one up. All right. We're going to hide it. We're not going to get rid of it. But we're going to put it in a safe place so that it doesn't assault you on a regular basis. Mm-hmm. But the consequence of having that experience is going to stay with me. So if I have an experience in elementary school where I am shamed in front of a group, and then you meet me as a college student, and I'm kind of shy, little backward, I kind of hang back with everybody. That's not me. All right? That's the child who was shamed in elementary school. So there is no doubt that we collect everything. Our brains remember everything, and they provide a protection for us. If something is way too intense to manage at that time, it'll get boxed, it'll get held onto, and then later on, you have the opportunity to go roaming through the attic and open all those boxes and see what's in there.
What if you just don't ever want to go in the attic? It's kind of spooky in there.
No, it's so important to go in the attic, right? Everyone, we have attics that are filled with junk and stuff. But in terms of your emotional health, it's very important to go in the attic and to do that intentionally. Yeah. You want to be able to heal. You want to be able to be the best person that you can be. You want to be able to make connections with people. We're born connected to another human being. We are physically connected.
That's true. My mom won't let me live that down.
She's sorry she had you. Okay. All right. But then we spend the rest of our life trying to connect with other people. That's not a mystery.
Yeah. I wander around waving my umbilical cord going, who wants to hook up to me?
Yeah, grab on to me.
Actually, there's probably a sexual...
Connect with me. Get a hold of me.
I'm not trying to be perverse, but based on what you said, we're trying to connect. Could that be part of the sexual drive experience?
Yes.
I'm not trying to be dirty here. I'm just...
No.
I mean, you kind of made an interesting point where we're born connected to a woman or a human being. And, we do we do search for connection.
We do.
That's the social medias, powerhouse, and this podcast is people searching for connection. They're searching for stories. They're searching for lessons. But yeah, maybe even sexuality is a way of connecting, even in the physical act of it. So.
It's definitely a way of connecting. It's the most intimate way that we can connect with a human being, and it's thrilling.
I wasn't cheating on you, honey. I was just trying to connect with people. Anyway, just kidding. That's just a joke, folks. Don't write me. I couldn't resist that one. Yeah. When I was younger, tell me about this. When I was younger, I would hear about these people that are like, I woke up one day and I realized I'd been molested as a child. And when I'm 30, I realized at 30 that I have these memories that came from hypnosis that I was molested as a child, or some other sort of a trauma example. And you be just kind of, that seems, what's going on here? Come on, man. You wake up at 30 and you realize whatever. But I think the older you get, the more unrepressed or repressed memories come to you. You realize that there's that packing system. And then when you realize, a lot of it is, a lot of the reminders, that ego brain, I'm not sure what you call it, but that ego brain who's always, he's always, mine's a he because I'm a guy. If it ever talks to me in the female voice, I'll be scared. I mean, not from any prejudice. I'll just be like, what's going on? But it's probably just one more voice out of my 12 voices in my head. So
we all have hundreds of them.
Do we? Yeah. Oh, wow. All right. I'm working my way up.
Yeah, we all have hundreds of them. And you talked a little bit about kind of the connection with mom. And the truth of the matter is that there's a very different emotional experience for males and females. By and large, mom is the person that takes care of the infant. Now, that's changing in this day and age because both men and women are working. Both of them get time off for having a new baby. So there's much more involvement of fathers at this point in time. But historically, mother took care of the baby. She stayed home, and a mother's reaction to a male infant is different from a mother's reaction to a female infant.
Really?
Yeah.
Tell us about that.
Yeah. The significant difference is that mothers will spend more time chatting and interacting, being verbal with a female, because somehow the female is comfortable for them than they will with a male. Now, the truth of the matter is the male comes into the world with a broader range of emotional expression than the female does.
Really?
Yeah, stop. Think about that.
I never would.
You never would guess that.
Serious?
Yeah, you would never guess that.
Now, they develop their emotionals and outpace this in their childhood?
No, what happens, because mother pays less attention to the boy than she does to the girl, and because the boy's expression is unfamiliar to her. Boys really do have a wider range. So sometimes they're much more intense in their expression as an infant, whereas the little girl is kind of, cute and within a normal range and doesn't get really excited. But the boy is boisterous, right? Yeah. And that's because he does have a wider range of emotional expression. This is difficult for the mother. And so the mother pays less attention, spends less time investing with the boy in terms of verbalizations. So normally, the boy loses access to emotional expression. And then we send them through school, we put them in college, and we expect them to marry a female and somehow be magically able to access the full range of emotions. Never going to happen.
Wow. And so does part of this come down to, I hear a lot of mothers, maybe I don't mean complaint because I think they mean, but they'll complain about their sons, how different sons are than men or women. And I see how sons are different than men. I hope they're different because one's a son, one's a man. Right. Wait, you can still be a son. I don't know. It's Monday. My brain's broken, clearly. I can't make all these jokes work, folks. I'm trying too hard for you folks. This is how much I care. But female nature is more subdued in the feminine, that is. In its feminine, female nature is more subdued. It's more passive. It's more agreeable.
It's more pleasant. Let's just make it that. It's just like more pleasant.
Yeah. And with boys, they're rambunctious. We've had a lot of psychologists on that have talked about one of the problems boys have in school now, where there's no recess sometimes, where they're treated like broken girls. They're like, why can't you calm down and be like the girls and study? And, and like you said, they're more outward expressive. We're designed to be that way because it's how we have to go through the world and in our.
It's a great asset. It really is a great asset. I want to be able to help men access. It's not gone, right? It's still up there in your brain. It's not gone. It's just really boxed away or maybe put into a safe. And you just need to find the right key to open it up. It's still available. I do this in working with men. Often I will send them a feeling sheet, just 4 or 5 pages of feeling words. And the truth of the matter is, we have a hard time generating, all right? You had this experience, your wife got irritated at you, you thought that you were doing absolutely the right supportive things, and you start to have all of these feelings, but you can't label them. You can't figure out, what am I experiencing right now? If you run through all of these feeling words, they will just pop right off the page.
Huh.
It's a magical tool. It'll just pop right off the page.
So what do men do with those feelings? Because as men, we learn that our feelings really don't matter. And that if we express them to other women we're intimately involved with, they'll be weaponized against us. It shows as a weakness to our masculinity and our stoicism. So how do we utilize that data if we're delving into our feelings? I mean, I'm very stoic, but I have feelings. I don't need to express them.
Correct.
Or I don't need to feel every one and completely express it. I can look at it and go, why am I feeling that way? Okay, I made a mistake on this and I won't make that mistake again. But I don't have to emote the whole fucking feeling. I just can pick it up, look at it in a box and go, yeah, okay, cool. I felt something. I love my dog. I can express that. My dog isn't going to weaponize it, and 3 years later it'll be thrown in my face for something. But so how do men utilize that data, their feelings and stuff? Because we certainly can't express it. The world doesn't give a shit about our feelings, and it shouldn't. It's part of our masculine role.
First of all, let me compliment you for asking yourself the question, what am I feeling? Lots of men don't even ask that question. Wow. And it's a valuable question to ask. What am I experiencing? What am I feeling? Being able to identify it gives you the option of deciding, what do I do with it? But if you don't have that capability of even doing the reflection and asking yourself, what am I feeling? It is going to come out of your body in a different way.
It kind of starts out for a man with, what the fuck is going on? Is there something on me? And you're like, oh shit, I'm having a feeling. And then you're like, oh shit, what do I do with this? This is annoying. And, we manage through stoicism. Now, it depends on if that man operates in his masculine or in his feminine. If he operates as feminine, then he's probably going to go emote it and all that crap. And that's where men really stop being men.
Yeah, but why do you say that men stop being men if they have awareness of their feelings?
No, it's not about awareness. It's if they emote it and they act in a feminine nature. So if they respond emotionally to their emotions, they act out. Domestic violence.
Let's just call it expression. Look at the negative language that you're using. You're calling it acting out.
Yeah.
Rather than experiencing, expressing, being transparent. Those are all really healthy parts of a person.
I would agree with you. I am being negative on it. So there's a broad range of that rainbow. Yeah, if I want to express to my child that I love them, expressing maybe to a partner that you love them in a masculine way, that won't come back to you. It's just that men have realized that we realize that it's a very harsh part of our experience. Is women, children, and pets get unconditional love. Men do not. We are expendable. We're the first ones to go. That's why they say women and children first.
And that is exactly why men do not have access. We're not just talking about decades. We're talking about centuries of experience where we send the male out to either hunt or protect. So they can't afford to access feelings.
Yeah, we can't. I mean, we go do, you see men in blue collars. I mean, most of the foundational work in this country that runs the infrastructure, the buildings, the hard work, the labor under the streets, the internet, all that stuff is done by 98% of men. It is hard labor.
It is.
We die earlier than women because we work jobs that you'll die in.
And you get into more trouble than women.
We get into more trouble too because of that expressive nature of ours, where we like to have fun as well. And sometimes our fun involves hold my beer. But you're right. I mean, being able to express oneself and emotions, or at least understand them. Some people disregard masculinity and stoicism as cutting off your feelings and just becoming a complete logical and reasoning being, which is somewhat. But as a man, your place in the world is to bring logic and reason and to not be overwhelmed by your emotions. Your emotions are secondary. To a female, her emotions are primary.
Yeah, but listen to your expectation. Your expectation is if you access a feeling, it will be overwhelming.
No.
That's not reasonable.
If I communicate, that's not what I intended to communicate.
Okay.
No, it's not necessarily overwhelming. It can be for men who live in their feminine, I believe.
It can,
because they will go right to the emotion first, and they will live. As a man, I identify men who are, we do a pecking order. We do a hazing of men when we tribe up. And so we figure out who the masculine men are and who the feminine men are, and who can be the hunter killers and who are going to ride with us and die with us and adhere to the aspects of masculinity, trust, honesty, loyalty, all that sort of stuff that we want. Otherwise we'll get in the battlefield and the feminine guy will run away screaming first time he sees danger.
Here's what I think, which is slightly different from you, which is I think there is a benefit, particularly in this day and age, to facilitating access to a broader range of feelings for males because it will improve their relationship with females. We have a culture where men and women cannot stay engaged with each other. Divorce rates are huge. All right. And the consequence of that for the next generation is mind-blowing.
Yeah, I would agree with you there.
Mind-blowing. So if we can facilitate the male accepting that he does have the capability of accessing the full range of emotions and open that door up just a bit more, then the dynamic between men and women who are creating a family can change dramatically. And then the children that benefit from that family will not be the damaged lot that we're experiencing right now.
Let me ask you this, because I want to fall back to this. This was a question I had from about, I think, 5 minutes ago. If people want to track that and the thing, you'd mentioned that when the women turn their attention away from their son that they don't really fully understand. I suppose that's the point that a man's supposed to step in and do the father-son thing. But maybe is there a necessity that we're teaching a son to go off on his own and not be conditionally supportive to the mother, or it's a way of cutting the boy off to try and get him to develop as a man, or maybe it's a turnover, a handoff to the father. But do you think there's a reason why that is? Maybe that's why they do that. It's to help him become a man and become.
Oh, I don't think it has. Himself. I don't think it has that motivation. I do think that it is just clearly, I'm more comfortable with someone who's similar to me. But let's just take height. If you're 5 feet tall, you're not as comfortable talking to someone who's 6 feet or 7 feet tall, right? So when it comes to the way that mothers interact with their male or female children, it's a matter of comfort. I know this person, all right? This person is like me. And so I can have immediate comfort with my little girl. The boy, I'm so glad I had a boy. Everybody gets excited about having a boy. Boys take preference over girls. But in terms of what do I do with this boy? How do I interact with this boy? How do I talk with this boy? I'm not quite as comfortable with that. And so that has a consequence for the boy.
Plus, boys aren't big talkers. I almost wonder if that's just a natural way of putting us on our hero's journey as men and how we have to develop ourselves. Because it's a lonely world when you have to approach the world that we don't get unconditional love. Probably our mothers are the only ones that are giving us unconditional love. But even, mothers are known to, give a kick to the kid, especially as a son, to make sure he gets launched and get him out there. And sometimes, I kind of learned this from my Huskies, where if a puppy is annoying the mom, she'll withdraw attention, or she'll maybe snap at him and then withdraw attention. And it isn't necessarily designed to be mean. It's designed to build the character and to educate, get them ready for life. That's the thing a lot of fathers bring to the table. So mothers, you fall and you skid your knee and you go crying to dad, and dad goes, suck it up. That welcome to life. Life isn't fair. They teach life lessons. And they go to mom, and mom goes, oh, I'll hold you and comfort you and put your Band-Aid on it. And you need to have both. You can't have just one person nurturing you all the time, every time you fall down. I think we see that with this generation. I mean, I've seen Gen Z people that I swear to God, if they asked their parents to wipe their bum, they would at 30 years old. I'm not even kidding.
We're not going to go there.
That. Yeah. And, you see that with the helicopter parenting and stuff. But there's a yin and yang to it. You need to learn that life isn't fair. Otherwise, you're one of these idiots screaming in the world, and you're like, you didn't learn this when you were 12 or 10? You got some serious problems waiting for you. Anyway.
I agree with you. I don't want to wipe out the masculine characteristic, but I do think that it is truly a shame that a dad can't tell his little boy that he loves him.
I think you can do that in a masculine way. I think you can share that. And I think that was the other question I'm flipping around on you now. We're going back to the end part where I threw back. Do you find that in your work that you do with men, that a lot of them, you mentioned that a lot of them aren't really identifying their emotions and understanding them. They're just kind of packing them away as we have the ability to do.
Right.
We can box up anything, really. Do you find that's happening a lot with men in your counsel, that they're really not, I mean, they don't really have to emote their emotions, but they really aren't identifying them internally and going, what am I feeling? Why am I feeling this way? Is this, being able to analyze their feelings? Because in Stoicism, you're designed to analyze your feelings.
Absolutely. Yeah. Understanding your feelings has so much value. It's not about, falling down in a puddle and crying, but it is about appreciating that hurt me and I'm sad about it, I don't have to go crying in a puddle, but I do have to recognize that hurt.
Mm-hmm.
That
Or
hurt.
I felt love or
Right.
happiness or love for my child.
Or that was tender. That was beautiful. That was loving. That was connecting. All this language that men have been deprived from. And, let's face it, you get men together, they're not talking about feeling experiences. They're talking about sports.
Yeah. That's how we keep each other strong. Because talking about feelings is usually seen as feminine, and not talking about it is usually seen as masculine. It's a hard balance that we.
Yeah, but I'm going to push back on that.
Okay.
And I'm going to push back hard. Okay. Because recognizing and identifying a feeling, excuse me, is not devastating. You make it devastating.
How do I explain this?
Men can do much better problem solving, particularly in relationships with their spouses, their children, their friends, if they themselves can identify their feelings. The key is to be able to identify it and name it. It doesn't mean that I end up in a puddle of tears, but it does mean that I recognize that you hurt me.
Yeah. Yeah.
And because you hurt me, I'm going to kind of monitor how often do you hurt me? And how comfortable is it for you to hurt me? All right. And why do you get pleasure out of hurting me? And, hey, maybe I don't want to hang out with you so much anymore. And then maybe I can also see that my son gets hurt in interactions with other kids. And I can validate that. All right. Hey, I know that he insulted you. I know that hurts, but it doesn't have to stay with you. That's his insult. You get to choose whether you keep it or not.
Yeah.
All right. So if you want to send it back to him, feel free. Send it back to him.
We've learned some things today on the show. That's why we do the show. So I love your thought process on it. I think men look at it from a darker aspect because of the hero's journey that we go through. We have to make ourselves into something, and we really don't become anything of value till 30, 40, 50. And it's a lonely road when no one loves you unconditionally. It's hell lonely, and it's a bit dark sometimes, but you learn to live with that, and you just go, this is the way it is. This is why in Stoicism and masculinity, we say it is what it is. And so we're a little scarred from our hero's journey. I mean, we're not given from, women from their birth are given, they're adored. They're in their youth, they're adored. They're the highest value at 18 to 22 at their highest peak of femininity and being able to bear children. It's a biological thing that we have for breeding and propagating the species. But I think men have a little bit darker slant on it because it's a hard road that we live.
It is.
Living your whole life
much
when you're, I mean, when men are in their 20s, they're pretty much worthless. They're worthless to women. They're worthless to society. I mean, this is why we send 20-year-olds off to die in war. Because they don't have anything better to do but be meat for the grinder. I know that sounds mean.
No, I think it's realistic. You just think of the number of people, the number of men that we lost in the Civil War.
Oh, yeah.
It's incredible.
Yeah, it's insane.
The talent, the capability. I mean,
the fathers that probably had children at home.
Huge.
That now are fathers.
And you're right on target, right? We take these young guys and we think they're expendable.
Yeah. I think because they don't serve anything in society. If you come to work for me as a 20-year-old, you're the new guy on the block. You're the guy who doesn't know shit. Everybody else in the crew is talented. They've got their, they've been for decades doing their things.
Right.
You know and have little to no experience. And we look at you and go, we're going to pay you shit. And you're going to eat shit and you're going to do all the shit work and we're going to haze you. And that's one of the reasons men haze each other is because we're also building character on each other. We are sharpening the knives on each other because we know if we're going to run as a team, or as a society, or all the things that we've visioned and built as men, we have to have that thing. We can't sit around and boob, because there's, the marauders are going to come for our women and children. They're going to come for us. They're going to come for everything we built and earned. And everyone looks to us, say, hey, you got to defend us in war. It's kind of funny, the new age sort of attitudes people have of, everyone's equal. But, you see in Ukraine, when it gets shut down for war, only the men can't leave and the men have to go to war. And so that's our role, and that's fine. But it is a bit dark to live in this world, I can tell you, as a man. And when you have to,
I believe it.
When you have to grind for 30 years, I mean, men's peak value is about 50 to 60. It's when we earn the most. It's when we finally have all our shit together. Mm-hmm. It's when we finally kind of learned human nature the hard way. But
if you look at the culture and project it into the future, can you see a future where we don't send boys off to war?
No.
The
one thing, man, this is what I always say on the show. The one thing man can, when I speak the species of man, the one thing man can learn from his history is that man never learns from his history, and thereby we go round and round.
That you're right on target about that.
I mean, for eons of time, back to, I don't know, Babylon or whatever you want to believe was the starting of everything, we've been warring and doing things. There's, the sad part is, I think and this is kind of a side note and off topic for the book, but I think we've thought that war was behind us, and that we graduated from being the animals
that it might be much more technological rather than throwing bodies at each other.
Yeah, but here we are, 2025, the Russia-Ukraine war, and God knows what else. And you've got the Chinese doing the Uyghurs thing, which is bigger than the Holocaust, and no one's stopping them. And so, I mean, I always tell people, they go, hey, I wish we could have peace on Earth. And I'm like, kill all the humans, then you'll have peace on Earth. It's just, human nature is a beautiful and ugly thing at the same time.
Repetitive.
Yeah. I mean, it's our hope, it's our beauty, it's our imagination that makes us wondrous, I suppose. But it's our ugliness and evilness and selfishness and the other parts of us. And so we're a Pandora's box. You open us up, you never know what you're going to find. And then as a society. But I love your insights into this, and your insights into men and working with them. I want to get to some of the offers on your website and make sure we flesh those out. On Read, Reflect, Respond, is there anything else that we should touch on that maybe you want to tease out to people?
No, but I want to show it.
Okay.
All right, so people know what it looks like. And I want people to enjoy it. All right? Do some self-discovery.
And you can order it wherever fine books are sold. Let's talk about your website. What are the offerings you have there? And we'll get a plug-in for the Substack as well.
So on my website, I have all of the writings that I've done over the years. So you can tap into any one of those. I also have some videos on my website that demonstrate the 2 techniques that I use. Emotion-focused therapy is most effective for couples, and it helps couples to uncover the emotional blocks that have kept them apart and led to difficulties and conflicts and hurt and injuries. And the IFS technique, the internal family systems technique, is actually brilliant. It is truly brilliant because it takes advantage of the fact that our brains do house everything that we have ever experienced. And it facilitates looking at pieces of your history, pieces of your behavior, to really find the beginning thread. So it's like tracing back and tracing back and tracing back to find the beginning experience. I was talking with a woman earlier this week at a training, so not a client. But she was telling the story of the fact that as a girl, she could not master math. Multiplication tables were just way beyond her.
Me.
Yeah. Well, okay. But this woman is a very successful professional, respected in her community and in her state. Yet when she goes to her father's house, he greets her by giving her multiplication questions. Yeah.
Is that good or bad?
That's horrible.
Sounds horrible, yeah.
That's
torturous.
Horrible.
It makes you not want to go around there.
Just throwing her back into her childhood.
Wow.
And
just talk about hitting your trauma over.
I know, right? Just hit you right.
Just get a hammer and just pound people's trauma. It's brutal.
And this technique will help anyone in a similar situation recognize that shaming that father is doing is no longer about her. That's not who she is.
Yeah.
Makes no difference whether she can answer that question now or not. All right. This is father's problem. All right. Father's good at math. And father can't tolerate raising a daughter who was not good at math.
So he's like signaling to her that she's not good enough because she doesn't measure up to his.
Right. So it's like a barnacle on a boat. Scrape this one off and toss it away. And if you can get your father to stop doing that, if you can stand up to him and say, you really want to see me, you're not going to do that greeting anymore.
I actually had this problem. I don't know if you want me to interrupt in here.
No, go.
Because you're giving such great data. I had that problem with my father. One of the challenges I had was they were in a cult, and I grew up in a cult. And I left the cult. I'd left the cult when I was like 3 years old. I'm like, this is bogus bullshit. But when I was 16, I officially left the cult and said, I'm not going to. I would go to their church and then I would just go back home, watch TV, and they thought 3 hours I was at church. And then I'd go back to church at the end, sit in the back of the pew for the last 5 minutes and be like, hey, yeah, that's so great. I learned. I'm so brainwashed now. Thank you. And for decades after that, growing up, we struggled to have a relationship with me and my father and other members of my family because I had left the cult. And anytime we would try and reconnect or try and have a I'm telling this so this helps someone. So if someone thinks I'm just pissing here, I'm hoping this helps somebody with the story. And so I couldn't. Anytime you start talking to him, you call him after a year, and you'd be like, and it was years. There were some years where we may have not talked to each other for 5 years, which is a little rough being a son and father or mother and son relationship. And I called him and you'd start talking, how are you? Oh, you're good. You'd have that small talk and you're like, okay, well, I'm thinking that maybe things have changed. And then somewhere it'll start slipping in the conversation. If you were with Jesus, this wouldn't happen. You're like, you're telling them about something that's happening with you. And then it starts just really getting pushed. And then you kind of try and ignore it from a stoicism thing where you're like, okay, I'm just going to dance around this. And then pretty much you're just like, why do I feel like someone is, I don't know, pulling a P. Diddy on me, freak fest, and they're just ramming the information at me. And like you said, I don't have a problem with their cult. I mean, the only problem I have with their cult is this interaction that I keep having to have. It'd be great if my whole family would just abandon it, but that's not going to happen. You don't get to choose your family, unfortunately. We need to look into that, by the way. Get some laws passed where you can choose your own family. But that I don't know if that was a good example of some of the things you were saying. And so it is
an excellent example, because what you've described is that contacting your father actually puts you back in that family of origin. All right. And so the boy who had a different experience, a different insight, knew in his own heart that this was not going to be a path for him, but was completely unable to separate himself, right? You're a kid. You're in this family until you can get out on your own. So at 6, 7, 8, there's no argument that you can make. So even as an adult, when you call your dad, it's that part of you that is longing for the communication and the connection, wanting dad to accept you as different and valuable, right? You're not following his path. You're following a completely different path, but you're still valuable. And you want your dad to acknowledge that you still have value to him, even though he still is committed to this faith experience that he's having.
And like you said earlier, a few minutes ago, for those hopping around, what you said a few minutes ago, to that fact that you recognize that this parental person that's holding on to this, it's their problem now. It's not your problem anymore. But you are still looking, as you said, for that. I mean, you said it really well. You should put that on a coffee cup, maybe, or a shirt. That, you know, you're still looking for that validation. You know, I remember it took me 30 years, somewhere in my 30s. I think it was 33 or 35. I don't know, you have to go look it up. But I built a multitude of multimillionaire companies, and it was the first time that I remember the exact place, I remember the exact time, I remember the exact feeling where my father finally, after 30 some odd years, said to me that he was proud of me.
Wow, that had to be powerful.
It was powerful, but it was cutting in a way, because it wasn't until I built multimillionaire companies and he was standing in my office and he could see the opulence that I had built.
He wasn't really proud of you. He was proud of the product that you produced.
And that's the way I felt. Boy, you nailed it right on the head. You just psychoanalyzed me right there. You're doing a great job on the show. I said, we don't psychoanalyze Chris on the show. That's like a rule we have.
All right.
You're doing great. Please, you're doing fine. As long as we don't, really start making me cry, we'll be fine.
Okay. All right.
But no, I mean, you've nailed a lot of great stuff on the show. But yeah, it's interesting, and I think it's harder between a mother's love is kind of what you seek as a son, but sometimes that acceptance of the father, it can be really hard, and sometimes he does it because he's hazing you, because he's doing some of that masculine stuff that we talked about,
or and because he's so busy he's not able to interact with you at all.
Yeah. And that was one of the other things I had to come to. And I think a lot of children need to come to, our parents are doing the best they can and they're overwhelmed like we're overwhelmed. I used to always listen to that song. Oh, was it The Cat's in the Cradle and the Silver Spoon?
Right.
And the story of how, I'll play with you, son, but I got to do some work now because I got to pay the bills for the family. I'll get with you. And then when he grows up, he doesn't have time. Eventually, after I think it was 40 or 50 years and facing death, he finally came to the realization that some of the shit didn't matter, the cult shit, and that really time and who we were was the more important part. And I think he went and saw a professional psychologist, so plug for you.
Yeah, good.
And he actually came to us after meeting with a psychologist and realized he'd been a narcissist a lot of the years and he'd been emotionally disconnected. And it wasn't that he was emotionally disconnected that wasn't the problem. It was the problem that he wasn't giving up a lot of what he wanted us to be or was pushing us to be. And maybe as a father, I'd never been a father, but maybe as a father, he had a dream that we would turn out a certain way and as a prodigy or a product of him or a junior of him. But, that wasn't going to happen. Maybe it was fear as a father when you believe in whatever, pick your afterlife poison or lack of afterlife poison, that, Chris won't be with me in heaven because he's going to go to hell because, listen to AC/DC.
That can be very, very powerful. That can be incredible.
And maybe some of that was his thing. Yeah. But I like your thing identifying why people are approaching us that way. And I love that aspect. I mean, like I say, it should be in a coffee cup. Sometimes it's not your problem anymore.
We're born connected to another person, and we spend the rest of our lives seeking connection.
What if you're a test tube baby? You're still born connected to a person? I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know how that whole thing works.
So far, we have not produced a real human in a test tube. Or produced embryos that will implant in a human being.
Yeah. That explains Elon
Test
Musk.
tube itself has not created a baby.
That explains Elon Musk then. I don't know what that means. I think he was created in a test tube of AI or something. I don't know. I'm just joking.
We're not going to go there.
Just joking with the Eloners. All right. And then the Substack. Tell us what you write about over on the Substack.
I write every week, and I write about things in my childhood. I write about stuff that I see on the wall.
Sounds like my podcast. We talk about everything.
I write about everything. All right. And I challenge myself to keep this to one page.
That's a challenge for people like you and I.
Yeah. That's a challenge. But so far, I've been very successful in keeping it to one page. And I challenge myself to write in a way that somebody out there will identify with it and go, oh, yeah, that I know that. I get that. And that they will also be challenged to reflect on some aspect of their lives. And it can bring them joy to do that. It can bring them conviction to do that. I want to impact people emotionally on that level. I don't just want to entertain. I want to impact people emotionally and hope then that they will do something with that challenge. I'll never know what they do with that challenge, but I hope that they will do something with that challenge that leads them to grow, to improve, maybe to reach back to someone and apologize for something that they did decades ago, or to challenge themselves to try something new that they thought they were afraid of.
And reflecting on our life, our emotions, our thoughts. I mean, that's stoicism, masculinity. Do you normally work mostly with men then?
It's interesting. All right. I started my practice working with preschool boys because preschool teachers are women.
Yeah. And
preschool boys just don't seem to fit for the preschool female teacher. Yeah. Boys are a little bit more rambunctious. They're a little bit more active. They require a little bit more attention. And so I started working with preschool boys and had a great time doing that. But as a result of that, the fathers of these kids put themselves on my calendar.
Oh, wow.
And I had 7 straight years where my calendar was completely full of adult men.
Wow.
So I've learned a lot from the men that I've worked with. Mm-hmm. And the other book that I'm working on is about fathering. It's basically how not to blank up raising your boy.
The father is so important in the whole mechanism.
Critical.
It's interesting you work with men a lot. You know, one of the problems I see, one of the challenges I see with a lot of men is a lot of men operate in their feminine now. They don't operate in their masculine. We've had psychologists on the show that have written books, and they wrote books 20 years ago. So now you read the books and you go, holy shit, they called it. But they addressed one of the problems was there's not enough men in teaching as there used to be. When I grew up, it was like 50-50 of men in teaching that we're exposed to. So we were exposed to both the feminine and the masculine. Mm-hmm. And at my age, those men teachers are pretty damn masculine. You know, they carried around paddle boards and kicked ass and took names, and they could, you know, it was legal back then, I guess, to give you an ass whooping. And can we bring it back, please? Anyway, I'm just kidding. I'm not. So I think this is great. I mean, if you're watching the show, I mean, this is a really great show, and you've done some wonderful work here and shared some wonderful things and some scotomas and some topics that, you know, if you're hopping around the show, basically what I'm telling you to go back and listen to it and order up her book. I've ordered it. On some of the services you offer, that was the other thing. Sorry, I'm getting this. The show is going really long, but that's because we have good content. That's how you can always tell a good show. You work with individuals, you work with couples and divorce.
Yeah, at this point in time, in thanks to COVID, before COVID, I had 2 offices. Mm-hmm. And because of COVID, I gave up both of my offices because no one's coming in person, and started doing my work through Zoom online. And I've continued to do that and really enjoy it. And so my focus is on adults and couples. And the process works well, with the exception that, like you and I, right, you get to see me from about chest up. I get to see you from chest up. But there's so much more information that's happening in the rest of your body. Mm-hmm. You know, if your foot were going like this while we're talking, I miss that.
Oh.
All right. But if you were in the office, I would notice it. That would be significant. That would have some meaning to it. Or if you're, twisting something in your hands in your lap, I don't see that on the video. But there's enough opportunity to ask some questions about how are things feeling in your body, what are you noticing in your hands and your legs, and all the parts that I can't see, that you can pick up some of that nonverbal information that you miss because, we're on a video. So I can't see all of you.
Yeah. And that's really important because the body tells the story.
That does. The body keeps the score.
Yeah. My teachers used to get after me because I always did that knee shake, leg shake thing. Mm-hmm. And I always tapped on the desk, drummed on the desk. Mm-hmm. And, my psychologist teacher, he goes, it's because you have an overactive brain. He probably have, I don't know if he told me that, but I had OCD and ADD.
Yeah, you need the stimulation.
Yeah. And so you're really bored in class because it's fucking boring. And what's interesting is I learned a lot from the classes that I was in when I stopped focusing on passing tests and reading books or semi-reading books.
Just liking the material.
Yeah. I think I learned more from Denial of Death, the book in our psychology class, than most people who read it. And I never read it. I cheated the report. Anyway, I don't know why we're talking about that. But anyway, so issues with Chris. No, I do that. I have a habit of multitasking ADHD, so you're probably well aware of that. Yeah, you're probably like most.
Sounds very familiar.
I need lobotomy, don't I? That's what most psychologists.
No, actually, I think a brain that does that is an advance, right? We're evolving as a species.
Really?
And I honestly believe that people that are diagnosed with attention deficit disorder are an evolutionary advance.
Oh, I'm gonna cut that video piece and send it to everybody who hates me.
And if you look at the recent experience of who's been creating things that we now use, you and I are using this computer. That wasn't there when I was a kid.
Yeah.
Somebody invented that. You go find out, who started that, who invented that. It's a guy with attention deficit disorder.
Yeah. That's the reason they call it the CO disease. It's a curse and an asset. You just have to learn to tame it. I had mine tame with old age, and then I got on testosterone replacement 2 years ago, and it came back.
It came back like
I had it mastered in my old age.
Back to the front.
I'd wake up and I'd be like, "Should I have anxiety today?" And I'm like, "No, I'm too tired for that. I'm not doing the ADHD thing. I just want to sit in peace for fuck's sakes." And then it was just old age and me being at low testosterone, where I just didn't have enough energy for anything. And then I got testosterone. It's like the OCD just came back. Squirrel. Anyway, so it's been wonderful to have you on. You've delved into so much topics.
With you. I've enjoyed it.
I've enjoyed it as well. We've had immense discussion here. So please, folks, if you've hopped around or if you caught the middle of this, go back and listen. This is one of the shows you want to listen to over and over again. Tell people how they can reach out to you, how they can order the book, how they can get to know you better, et cetera, et cetera.
They can order the book on Amazon. They can also request it from their local bookstore. Every bookstore in the world actually has access to this book, which is very exciting.
You can order wherever fine books are sold, and give us the .coms again for the Substack and your website.
And then, so the website is www.drvanderhorst, DERHORST.com.
Thank you very much for coming on the show. We really appreciate it. Very
enjoyed
insightful. And keep up the great work and the great books coming and stuff and all that good stuff. Thanks for tuning in to my audience. Be sure to go to goodreads.com/Chris Voss, LinkedIn.com/Chris Voss, Chris Voss 1, the TikTok, any all those crazy places in it. Be good to each other. Stay safe. We'll see you next time. And that should have us out.